Hello, today we are going to talk about self-reinvention, which is what this channel is all about. In case you have watched one or two of my videos where I zoom into the little details within this huge realm of body of knowledge within self-reinvention, so you may have lost sight of what this channel is all about. So I would like to walk you through, if you will, by taking you on an aerial overview of what this channel is about, which is self-reinvention. So I have shared with you many times why self-reinvention is necessary, because if we do not self-reinvent on a continuous basis, on an ongoing basis, we will find ourselves living each day of our life exactly like the day before. And this is not a very dynamic or progressive way of living our lives, because whatever we would have learned on how to carry on with life probably came from primary caretakers who lived at a different time, and they had different exposure. They had different resources. We live in changing times, and therefore we need to upgrade. We need to break from the age-old conditioning that we received from our parents or other elders who had an influence over us. This is why it is so important to self-reinvent on an ongoing basis, so that we can become all that we can be, so that we can achieve great things in life. And as I told you before, this is the why we need to self-reinvent, because if we don't self-reinvent, we would live a life of wanting and not having enough, and wondering why our life is such, but not being able to do anything about it. So I'm sure none of us want to live like that, right? So that is why self-reinvention, as I have told you many times before. Next, we come to how do we self-reinvent? And this is where the three theoretical frameworks come in. We started with the first framework here. This framework is utilized to get to know ourselves as we are, and then doing certain things to self-reinvent across all the 9 layers of self as matter and energy. That is the first theoretical framework that I introduced. So you get to know yourself across the 9 layers of yourself as matter and energy. And what you do is you act upon yourself at each layer at 5 levels actually. So the 5 levels are the words that you speak, what you speak and what you do, what you feel, what you think, and what you adhere to as rules. So these are the 5 levels. Now, so you start by examining at every layer, what are the words you speak? How do you act? How do you feel? What are the emotions that you feel? How do you think? And what are the rules that you're adhering to? Are these rules coming from age-old conditioning, or are you reinventing the rules of your life? And then there's a 6th level. The 6th level is universal, and they are principles. So you have to ask yourself if the rules that you're adhering to is aligned to these principles. Yeah, these principles are universal because they are the same for everyone, and they are the same across time zones and across geography. Yeah, regardless of your ethnicity or gender or your religion. Yeah, so these are universal principles, but I like to call them spiritual principles as well. Yeah. So why spiritual principles? Because essentially knowing these principles is what knowing the truth is all about. And spirituality is essentially understanding yourself in your authentic form, right? So finding your authentic self is what the spiritual journey is all about, right? So when we talk about our words, the words that we speak, and our actions, we're usually very, very clear that these are actions. But we're not aware that even our emotions and thoughts are actions too. We think they just happen to us, yeah? But they become actions when we invoke our free will to choose our emotions. Then the emotion that we feel becomes an action. Similarly, our thoughts, we think we are just responding to stimuli that we are exposed to throughout the day in our everyday life, yeah, and these thoughts just come and go, they emerge in our mind, right? So we have no control over it. The truth is, we can control our emotions, our thoughts, yeah. So the whole idea is to start with words, actions, emotions. We can subordinate our words, actions, and emotions and our thoughts to rules. Yeah. So these rules are the one that we need to pay attention to. Sometimes we're not aware of the existence of rules that are shaping our thoughts and emotions and our actions and words from moment to moment. So we have to become aware of these rules, and the next step is to ask ourselves whether these rules are aligned to universal spiritual principles. How do we know this? What are the universal spiritual principles? I have not started talking about this because this is a biggie, and when I start talking about this, I really want to do a very good job at it by actually creating one video as an overview and then cascading down to the details and explaining the spiritual principles very clearly. In a previous video, I talked about rules and principles in a number of previous videos, and I had mentioned the book from which I draw what I think are the spiritual principles. Well, you do you. Go explore, find out. But if you'd like to be informed by my findings, please feel free to do so. You're welcome to do so, right? So with regard to reinventing yourself across these 5 layers, guided by the 6th overarching universal spiritual principles, yeah, you need to work really, really hard, and you have to be work in progress throughout your life. And it is okay to fail, because even knowing the spiritual principles, being aware of it, does not guarantee that you'll be able to habitually adhere to rules that are completely aligned to spiritual principles in the various settings that you find yourself day to day. So this is what this channel is all about, and moving forward from there, we have also talked about another 2 theoretical frameworks. Here, the 2 theoretical frameworks are the 8 pillars of life. These are areas, the 8 pillars are essentially areas in which you keep setting higher goals to ensure that you are progressing dynamically through your life. And this is the second part of self-reinvention. Yeah, so you set goals and you go back to the first theoretical framework, which is reinventing your words, actions, emotions, thoughts, and rules, and make sure all are aligned to the universal spiritual principles, yeah, by continuously working on yourself. So basically you become work in progress. Okay, so first, usually, even though I prefer to talk about the 9 layers of self as matter and energy first, because that is where a lot of the work happens, but you are guided. Yes, so basically it is a target that you're moving towards. Your targets that guide you to work on the 9 layers of self as matter and energy is the goals that you set across the 8 pillars. And there have been a number of videos made on how to set goals, yeah, and how to include certain understanding about the uncertainty of the manifestation of these goals, and how even when you don't manifest the goals, having set the goals and working on yourself towards achieving the goals actually serve you, and it will eventually take you to a place where you need to be exactly in your life. So it's perfect. Okay, so you're not 100% in control. Yeah, there is uncertainty in everything, and that's where you draw upon the resources that you have around you. Yeah, the person you become. Okay, so you need other people, right? So not everything that you want materializes or manifests at the time that you want it, but what materializes or manifests is for your own good. So that is the second theoretical framework. And the third one is the 5th dimension of personal development. It's again those dimensions of your individual personality that you work on in order to facilitate the changes, the self-reinvention across the 9 layers of self as matter and energy. So this is what this channel is all about. Yeah, today is an overview. Before I start going into the details of the rules that we need to have in our life, and we will discuss a lot about some rules that work and some rules that don't, because the truth is many of the rules that we have been taught, yeah, we have been conditioned to adhere to, can be working against us, and we don't even realize it. And this is where there are very difficult human beings that emerge in our life and cause us all kinds of stress and even mental illnesses. So we will continue talking about this. Actually, in the past few weeks I have been talking about psychological health. Yeah, we have addressed the physical dimension, and we were talking about psychological health in the past few weeks, and this is where I needed to touch about rules and principles. Okay, because if you don't have access to a good therapist, then you definitely need to develop a robust psychological state by getting to know the spiritual principles Thank you and bye bye. See you again real soon. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.